So we finally got a chance to play Daemon X Machina, and we did this in the prototype missions that they put out. During the Direct, actually, the other day, they announced that we would be able to demo the game in what is, I guess, a very early build or an early demo, essentially, that they're looking for feedback on. So they are specifically looking for ways to improve the game ahead of launch. They said there would be a summer launch, at least what they said, that could go to like August, technically. It could end up being a September release even, for all we know, but I think something like an August release would actually work okay for this game. They are saying that there will be local and online play between 1 to 4 people, and it's being done by Marvelous Inc. Now, this is being done with Nintendo as part of it, so it's only on the Switch, which will, of course, add some quirks here and there. But I wanted to bring in Evan as well, who did play it, and I wanted to talk to him about what he thinks of the game so far, along with me, and ways that they can improve it. And I invite everyone else to also talk about what they think of the game so far and how Marvelous can improve the game ahead of launch. Remember, they're looking for your feedback, so you can also hit them on social media with some suggestions. But how are you doing today, Evan?
I'm doing all right, man.
Cool, very good. And so you got a chance to play it. You spent some time in the missions and everything, walking around even in like the I guess the hangar bay that you have once you first drop in there. What was your first impression of the game when you were playing it?
I mean, it felt pretty good. Like, it felt kind of sharp, at least in terms of its core mechanics. But the thing that really started to hit me pretty intensely was how difficult things in it were to read, from like stats and what you were actually changing out on your mech, to even just being in combat in certain levels. Like the giant boss fight they had at the end, it was very easy to figure out what was going on. But when you're in town and things are kind of all muddied together in the same palette, and your HUD's just taking over everything, and you're trying to read what kind of ammo is going, like what you're actually draining and what you need to go get, and it gets a little out there in terms of just player readability.
So something that's very interesting that I started to notice in the game is there is a manual, so like that I guess they want you to read. They don't explain a lot of stuff. So far from what I've seen, just looking at the game visually, what are our thoughts on the visual style right now? Because I think we might be a little different on this, because I actually like the visual style that they've gone with here. With kind of the cel-shaded style look, just because it's a bit different from some of the other mech games I've played, specifically Armored Core, because the team on this worked on the Armored Core games from before, whether you're playing on like the PS2 or the PS3. I think the last good one was, it might have been For Answer. Does that sound right?
That was the one people said was a pretty good one.
That was the one that I remember liking. The last one that I can think of that I actually liked. I think there was Armored Core 5, but I didn't really get into that one. I just remember enjoying Armored Core 4 Answer on the. I remember playing that on the PS3 and liking it. Yeah,
I think that was one of the 3 games that was actually making me decide whether I was getting a PS3 at the time. That was one of the ones I picked up.
Is it? Yeah, it was a good game. Oh, yeah. That's right. You did take that home and you played that one. That's right.
Yep.
So I liked that one a lot, and now I'm kind of coming back here with the mech games with this one. I actually am okay with the art style that they chose for it. But what did you think of the visual style here? Because I think it's bright and colorful enough when you're out there, but I guess I could see some people having issue with some of the stuff kind of blending together, especially in the backgrounds. But what did you think about how it looked?
Well, yeah, definitely. Like, I don't mind the cel shading at all, but I do mind that there's kind of like a muddiness to it. It's okay that a character doesn't need like super amounts of detail, but for their actual textures on them to almost look like a low poly or like a low, I guess, resolution image, that you get the little pixel jagginess within their own costumes and outfits, and the textures kind of just fall apart, especially on full screen, like in non-docked mode. In docked mode. In handheld, it'll probably look fine.
I played it a little bit in handheld mode, and it looks alright. It is still kind of has a bit of I guess I'd say blurriness to it in handheld mode. I think it looks better in docked mode, to be honest, over handheld mode.
Yeah, because when I was playing it in docked mode, it just didn't feel right. Like, there were just elements to it where character edges were just a little off, just how some of the enemies looked. It was just kind of a box that, I guess, it gets overridden anyway, because there's so much visual fidelity things going on when you're playing that almost seem kind of needless, that might be causing performance issues, which I know both of us experienced in the game, some frame rate drops at times.
Yep. we'll get to that when we get to the issues.
Yeah,
yeah.
But like, just overall, the visual aesthetic. I mean, the first level was dark brown area with a little bit of like sand in it, and you were fighting enemies all over that kind of faded into the buildings that were around you because it was the same level of darkness. It was the same contrast. And I like cell shading in these types of games. I kept telling you about the other one that I played, X-Steel from forever ago from NCSoft before they buried that game. And visually speaking, I feel like it's better. It's brighter than this. It has way better approach to kind of that like background foreground feel where the background has certain colors in it, the characters have different ones. It's easy to make out what you're looking at, whereas this, it just kind of falls into itself. And I don't know, like, I'd love it to be cell shaded, but I'd like it to be sharper, because it looks, I feel, a little worse than that game, which was out like almost a decade ago.
So you're thinking like if they could sharpen up some of the visuals around the characters and the mechs.
The edges,
I actually like the mechs themselves. I actually really like the design of them.
No, yeah, the mechs are cool, and building them is great. I love that building menu. That thing is incredible. Just all the little nuance, all the stat changes. You can change individual arms. Like, it's not just about like the whole set. You can create this perfect thing for yourself.
Yeah, that leads me into something I really like in this game so far are the mechs. Like, the mechs are awesome in the game. The way that they were designed, and they actually had. I actually had them on my screen here. I can pull it back up. They actually had someone that worked on Armored Core actually develop the different mechs and the concept art and everything. Here we go. The character designs were created by Yusuke Kazaki, who he did work on Fire Emblem Awakening and then Fire Emblem Fates. That's for the characters, but the mech concept designs were created by Kawamori, who worked on the Armored Core series. So they have some veterans there, and you can see the quality in the mech design. Like, there is some serious detail and thought put into these different mechs, even though you're changing out like the arms and the legs and the head on your mech and everything. It really does look awesome, I think, from like a detail perspective.
Yeah, and they feel like what they're supposed to feel like. If you have a slower but more durable mech, it's not going to look like that bird-like mech. It's going to be a box basically running down a field. And
yeah,
that definitely feels great to see when you want to go one direction, which is interesting because this is basically the mech Monster Hunter game for most part. So like, to the ability to develop your character to be like, I'm going to go the heavy with the weapons platforms that I can do stuff from ranged. If you guys want to go melee with your super speed in the air, that's great. And it'll all feel and look the way it should, I think. It's just
it makes me curious about when you go online, if it's going to be like you're going to see so many different mech designs online and everyone just does like a co-op mission where you're all fighting against one massive tank enemy and there's all these different types of mechs flying around. That would be really cool. That'll be neat.
Normally in games like this, the meta will evolve around what do you want to do? Well, this is the best for it. But hopefully the weapon diversity in this game kind of expands that greatly. So we'll have to see how that works.
Yes, so I like that. I actually like the boosting mechanic in the game. Like, when I boost around, I think it feels pretty good moving around. As you customize your character, you get more mobility if you want. And they have that kind of that chromatic aberration that happens when you boost to try to give you a sense of like speed and kind of impact. And I actually like the boosting in the game. I think it's kind of neat when you start really getting the hang of it and kind of like flying and zipping around.
Yeah, when you get used to it. I feel like the weakest element to it isn't your movement itself, but the AI's interaction with you. Some of the fighting, when you're in the air, it just feels like, oh, this is easy mode. Let me just stay over here and shoot. The final boss, I basically just hovered outside of his shield range and just kept shooting him in the knees and stuff. It was fine. But like on the ground, it feels like a different game. Like, how often did you like spend on the ground for most of your missions? Like, do you mean
outside of my mech as my character, or the mech
no
itself?
just the mech on the ground?
I spent some time on there. I liked it. Was kind of funny because you kind of skate around when you start boosting, and that felt kind of cool. I don't know, that was neat. Like, kind of skating around was cool.
It feels different down there, and it feels great. I actually really like the ground play, but there is an emphasis in this game on flight.
Yes.
Because you actually just hover. Like, you don't have a limited aerial time like you do in some other mech games. So once you go up there, you're basically Kirby flying around, and kind of does change the difficulty level. And hopefully they add in different AI and enemy elements that make that more difficult.
I hope there's like some indoor levels too, where you like you're in your mech and you're like going down a corridor and stuff, so you're forced to be on the ground more. That could be kind of neat.
There has to be, right? Because did you get out of your mech in the demo?
Yo, yeah, I ran around a couple times because it blew up. But yeah, there were a few times where I was running around on the ground.
Your mech blew up? Okay.
Yeah, it gave up on me. You gotta eject out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I just got out of it occasionally because I wanted to see what that was for. We all thought originally that you'd get out of your mech and try to like hijack enemy vehicles.
That's what I thought too. Yeah, I thought I'd be able to run around, and once I lost my mech, I was just my guy on the ground for a while.
Yeah, and I was one-shotting enemies as that as well. So I was just like, why was I in a mech before? Like I just summon this gun and kill everything.
So some of the stuff that they're going to need to work on that I have written down here. I think I said the number one, the biggest thing is the frame rate issues. Specifically there's the second level. I think there's a big boss that comes down, and right then and there I could tell like there was this serious issue with frame drops to the point where it was very noticeable, and it affected kind of the performance and like the ability to actually play the game to a degree. But I like to think that because this is version, if you look on the menu, it is 0.1. I think this is the E3 build that they were playing in the treehouse, and that is a fairly old build because even then they said it was a few months old. So we're probably playing a build of the game that's like a year and a half old right now. So I'm hoping that frame rate and stuff is all ironed out in the final build. I think that if they can target at least just a solid 30 frames capped, I think they'll be okay there because I don't think they'll hit 60 in this game.
Which, I mean, that's a little disappointing because, like, visually speaking, there are games that hit 60 that I feel are tighter than this.
Yeah, I wish, like, the days of 60 frames per second in consoles left us back on, like, the GameCube and the PS2 days. That was when everything was, like, 60. Well, not everything, but a lot of things were 60 frames
But there's such an emphasis on speed because if you got more parts for your mech, and where I'm guessing we're getting very basic pieces, you start to feel a serious amount of speed boost between what you start as and where you go. So like 30 frames at the highest speed that you might hit in this game will probably feel terrible.
There's also no gyro aiming in the game that I've seen.
Yeah, that's a little. I mean, it's mostly just AI based aiming. Like even the targeting system where you see the blue circles and the red, that doesn't even matter. It's if you aim in the direction in general and the gun can get to that, it'll just target and attack. So you just kind of put them in the circle and then just spray. So you don't even really need the gyro that much.
I also had an interesting issue in which level was this? This might be the third one, where you're fighting the big
two mini mechs.
The big spider boss that's like walking around.
That's the fourth one. Yep.
Okay, yeah, fourth one. There was this weird thing where you can go out of bounds. So that's the part where you can actually exit the battlefield and it gets mad at you and it autopilots you in. It doesn't say, hey, you got like 10 seconds or 15 seconds to get back in.
Yeah, it boosts you, forces you back in. Were you getting rubber banded back and forth because the boss shielded next to the out?
Yeah. So the boss shielded next to it, and I keep going out of bounds because the shield bounces me out. And then rather than it giving me the ability, like 10 seconds to kind of get back to the battlefield on my own, it kept autopiloting me right into the shield, which would then kick me right back out, which would then autopilot me back in. And I was just taking damage, and I couldn't do anything until the boss's shield dropped.
Yeah, I mean, this feels like, because when I reviewed the Monster Hunter game and I said I didn't like it when the monster kicked me out of the actual area we were in, that it kind of sucked that would happen, and people were like, oh, get good. I feel like that's going to be kind of this situation as well.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you should just recognize where you are, but they definitely should just be like, you have 20 seconds to get inside or we're just going to annihilate you.
The worst part was that one of my teammates somehow died outside of the area. So I couldn't revive them. They were on the outside. They were out of bounds. And first I was like, how did that happen? But yeah, I couldn't get to them. So they were just down for the count for like the rest of the mission. And that was actually fairly early on.
What I'm getting from you a lot is that you seem to die a lot in this.
No, not me. My ally, one of the allies.
I've never experienced either of that. I've never experienced the mech dying. No, I just rip things to shreds.
One of the guys keeps dying in the game.
Joker or what, the rookie kid?
It might have been. It was one of the two. I have to go back and look at their names, but one of them would consistently die in that fourth mission.
Yeah, I never had that problem.
Yeah, they would consistently lose, and one of them was outside the mission space.
Did you experience, or did you actually get to experience any of the, I guess, the point destruction where you can, like, you blow the gun up off that spider tank, and then you can go to the gun, grab it, pick it up, target the tank with it, and shoot it.
Yeah, I had that happen a few times. Yep.
Okay.
That was kind of neat. The enemies will drop their weapons, and you can use them against them. Oh, that was kind of cool. The controls are fully customizable, as well as the HUD. You can customize all of that stuff, which is pretty cool, actually. Everything from that sense is customizable, but the amount of detail they have there, and so far, it could be something they add later on. There's no way to, like, have an HP bar for the enemies, which is weird to me, because I think there were times where, you didn't know how much you were supposed to keep attacking a certain enemy, especially some of the bullet sponge ones. But maybe I'm hoping that's like something that's added on, like it's like a headpiece for your mech, gives you the ability to see the enemy's HP bars, for example.
Maybe, but I mean, this, like Monster Hunter, this feels like the points on them are what kind of reveal whether or not you're winning. Like on the spider boss, blowing up its kneecaps, blowing up the joints, blowing up the 6 generators on his gun, blowing up the, I think, 8 generators underneath him to stop the shield from occurring, and while it's happening, you're also destroying him. Like, I feel like there's a little bit of feedback to it, but I could see where a health bar would be useful, just because it is an action game, and people do like that. They like to see how fast they can drain an HP bar.
And then the other thing that bugged me about the controls was the descending. When you descend,
oh god, yeah.
Well, what I did was I took that off of that left stick immediately. Like, the click in the left stick makes you descend, but it's not like a slow descent. Well, it is a slow descent, but it's not like a descend where you click and hold it, and then when you let go of it, you stop descending. You click it once, basically, and then you just drop to the ground.
Yeah, you have to reinitiate your boost whenever you want to go back and not fall anymore, but it floats down. So, like, I almost don't notice it. Like, I feel like I'm accidentally directing myself down, and I'm like, oh, hang on, I gotta go back up, and then I realize that my boosters have been cut, and I'm just like, oh man.
Yeah, because when you have the boost going and you're zipping around, it feels very agile at times, and you're really moving. But then you click that descend, and the descend part is just it's just slow. Like, it's completely opposite of the boosting around and basically getting around up in the sky until you have to drop down. You can kind of aim down and, like, boost downwards, but then you lose the ability to aim. And the whole point of this game is to be able to keep your cursor forward or on enemies while you're boosting left and right and strafing and back and forward and everything. So it feels out of place, that descending mechanic. So I think that's something they could look into, maybe to make it so descending it feels a bit more agile, like you could boost downwards without having to look down when you descend, or it's like it's a descend that you control when you hold a button, essentially. So it'll, like, slowly fall if you're holding it, and then once you let go, it'll stop descending.
Oh yeah, definitely a bit of control, I guess. Just increasing the speed at which you fall, so you kind of know what's happening right away.
Right. Yeah, that would make sense. But those are some of the bigger issues that I saw with the game. I did enjoy my time with it. I think there's a lot more to the game that they haven't shown us. So, like, I'm hoping that there's more parts to get. I'm hoping, like, there's obviously more bays in, like, the where you're putting your mechs and everything. There's obviously more mechs that you will get as you go through it. So I don't think we've seen most of the game here, outside of, obviously, this little cut. So I'm hoping that there's a lot going on with this game when we finally get it. Hundreds of armor pieces, weapons, and everything. So I think this is a cool first impression, and some things to clean up there. Otherwise, though, I think this is going to be good for Armored Core fans. Myself, anyway. I think it's going to be fun. Yeah,
and hopefully it kicks off and they actually make it like a really good first-time experience for people in games like this, because as we've started to see with the Switch, DLC is an option. Expanding a game is an option. So down the road, who knows, more missions, pack of an edition of like 50 to 100 new pieces. Like, we could see a lot of cool stuff come out of this.
Yeah, the one thing I'll give them credit for, this is definitely not one of those betas where it's like, pre-order it now, get the beta, and then in 2 weeks we're going to launch the game, so that beta you just did doesn't actually have any effect on the game, kind of thing. I'll give them credit. This kind of reminds me, if I had to compare it to something, the Octopath Traveler demos that they did multiple demos. They actually took that feedback. So I think Marvelous is interested heavily in people's feedbacks and how they can make the game better. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and it's a good thing for them to do that, because as with anyone, if you've been focusing on this type of game the whole time and you don't really have like an outside source to point at something and go, no, I have no idea what that means, and they're like, oh, we know what that means because we've been working on it for however many years, we should probably explain it. Like, it's good that they're putting it out there like that.
Yeah. So those are my thoughts on Daemon X Machina. Is there anything else you need to add, Evan?
No, that's about it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, definitely go check it out, guys. If you're interested in like kind of the Armored Core style game, the prototype missions are free on the eShop, so you can download it, check it out for yourself, and see what you think. And make sure you send some feedback to them online on social media and whatnot, and just give them some of your feedback, what you like, what you don't like. And make sure you leave the comment down below for those as well. Make sure you guys like the video if you like it, dislike it if not, and we will see you in the next video.